All right, so my name is James from Varsity Unlimited Tutors. I believe for a number of you we have talked before. Last week we had a class on Sunday, lesson number 1 for microeconomics. So today we want to look at lesson number 2. So just a reminder, I am a private tutor. I do charge for these services. It's just that for now, I am giving them to you for free so that you can assess whether you want to join the services or not. So at the end of the class, we will talk more about joining the class. But for now, I want us to go into our study material for today. Right. So today I want to look at a specific topic, which is called the production possibility frontier or the production possibility curve. For those of you that are in your first year, this is found in unit number 2. For those of you that are doing advanced diploma, this is not in your study guide, but it is in your textbook. And there are some questions that come from this unit that you're expected to know about. So that's what we want to look at. And also, we want to have a look at the circular flow of income. For the first years, that's your unit number 3. And for the guys that are doing advanced diploma, that's your unit number 2. So those are the two things that I'll be looking at for today. So remember what I highlighted in the previous class. I said that the way that I teach is that I try to focus on things that I have seen that come through your exams. I do not focus too much on what the study guide is saying, but I focus on things that I have seen in the exams, so that when the exam come, you will be prepared to answer it. So because of that, actually next week, we actually want to do a revision of what we have covered. You'll see some of the questions that we'll be dealing with. All right, so first of all, let's just go back a little bit to what we talked about last week so that we revise and then we can pick up from there. So last week we were talking about the definition of what economics is. And we highlighted that economics is the study of human behavior, right? Whereby we are trying to see or assess or analyze the choices that people make. And we said that the reason why people make choices is because of two things. It's because of scarcity, that is, resources that are very limited in nature. And also, it's because of unlimited wants or unlimited desires, where I gave you the example that, for example, myself, I would like to drive a Lexus. And then I said, some of you would want a Bugatti, some of you would want a Ferrari, but all of us cannot afford it. Right? So that is scarcity and unlimited wants, the dichotomy of the two things. And we say that when people make choices, it results in opportunity cost. And I said we are going to discuss a little bit more about opportunity cost today. So that's part of the production possibility curve. It would help us to understand opportunity cost a little bit more. Right. Then last week, we also looked into the factors of production or the productive resources. We said that there are 4 factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. And one of the things that we noted is that these things are limited. There is so much limited or limitations in terms of the land, in terms of the people, in terms of the capital, in terms of the skills that exist within an economy. Now, one of the other things that I don't think we talked about it last week, but one of the things that you also should know as a student is that there are rewards to the ownership of factors of production. So, for example, if you are a person who is able to supply labor, right, you get what we call a wage rate or a salary. Right, everyone who supplies labor gets a wage rate or a salary. Right, someone who is an entrepreneur, right, who has entrepreneurial skills as a resource, they get profit. right? Someone who has got capital, they get an interest from that capital. And someone who has got land, they get rentals from the land. So those are the rewards to the factors of production. Then we said when we combine everything, the reason why we study economics, right? The reason why we study economics The reason why we study economics is because there are three economic questions that we are trying to answer. And the questions are what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. For whom to produce is how do we distribute, right? And we said that these three economic questions are answered through the use of what we called the economic systems, which is the command economic system, the market economic system, and the mixed economic system. And the command system, we gave the example of Cuba, of the previous Soviet Union, of the previous China, right? And then the market system, we gave the example of the US and the UK, right? And then the mixed system, we highlighted that South Africa is currently operating under the mixed system of what? Of economics. So this is what we talked about last week. Now we want to get into today's business, right? So in today's business, we want to go a little bit deeper. So don't worry, even if you don't see what I'm talking about in your study guide, guys. Don't worry. We're still on the same route. It's things that will come in your exam that I want you to know. Because if you understand these things, it will be easier for you in the exam. So today we want to talk about the production possibility curve. Now, in our first lecture, I said economics has got theory, economics has got calculations, economics has got graphs. Right. So you understand economics from those three dimensions. So the production possibility curve is the graphical representation, and also it will even have calculations that show us what we learned in unit number 1, right? So everything that we learned in unit number 1 can be presented graphically, can be presented through workings, through the production possibility frontier or the production possibility curve. PPC or PPF is the same word, right? So for us to understand the PPC or the PPF, the first thing is we're going to make assumptions. We have got a country, for example, South Africa, right? The country South Africa is a country that can produce either one of the two products. They can produce computers or they can produce wheat, right? Computers represent machinery, equipment, and etc. Wheat represents food, right? Just think about it that way. So they can either produce computers or they can produce wheat. If the country decides we only want to produce computers, nothing else, they'll produce 1,000 computers, right? If they decide we want to produce wheat and nothing else, they'll produce 20 million tons of wheat. So the production possibility curve, or the PPC, is the graph that shows us the maximum possible production that a country can make using using all of the resources that the country has. If we use all of our land, if we use all of our labor, if we use all of our entrepreneurial skills, if we use all of our capital, right? The production possibility line shows us the maximum possible for us to produce. So this line on this graph, AB, this line AB, right? This line here that I'm showing in red, this whole line here, this line, that is what we call the production possibility curve or the production possibility frontier. It shows the maximum possible production if we use all of our resources. Right, so that's the theory. Now let's go straight into exam questions. What type of questions can the lecturer ask about this thing? Right. So the first question that the lecturer might ask you is a question of efficiency. right? An economy is called efficient when it is producing on the PPC, on as in AON, on the PPC. So if an economy produces here, or here, or here, or here, or here, we call that economy efficient. That's what we call it. We call the economy, it is efficient because it is using all the land, all the labor, all the entrepreneurial skills, all the capital, and producing the maximum possible production. So that is question number one, efficiency. Question number two, your lecturer can say, what is an inefficient economy? An inefficient economy is an economy that produces inside the PPC. Anyway, inside the PPC. For example, this point here. This is inefficiency. If this economy produces 800 computers, right? You can see the 800 computers and 2.5 million wheat. We say that they are inefficient. That's what we say. They are not using all the land. They are not using all the labor. They are not using all the entrepreneurial skills. They are not using all of the capital. So this point becomes inefficient. Which one is efficient? If they move here, do you see at this point here? They are still producing 800 computers, but now they are producing almost like 8 million tons of wheat. So that is a better position because you have got the same number of computers, but you have got more wheat. It becomes more efficient because they are now utilizing all of the resources. So any production that happens inside of the PPC is called inefficient. Some exams will use the word underutilization of resources, right? This economy is underutilizing. It means that there is some land somewhere that is not being used. Some exam questions will use the word unemployment. Unemployment meaning there are some people that are not working, in the economy. So, for example, if the lecturer is to ask you in the exam, is South Africa operating on the PPC, and he says point A, right? Or inside the PPC and he says point B, or outside the PPC and he says point C. You are going to say South Africa is operating at point B. Why? Because if you go and listen to the news right now, news says that we have got 35% unemployment or 55% youth unemployment. Unemployment means these are people that have labor but they don't have jobs. So it means that they are being underutilized. There is inefficiency that is happening in South Africa at this particular moment. That's another typical exam question there. Then the third question is, what about outside of the PPC? Outside of the PPC, we say this is unattainable, right? Unattainable, which means that it cannot be obtained. It is not possible for you to produce outside of the PPC. Why is it not possible? Because we remember, we said this line represents what? We said it represents the maximum possible production using the current resources that we have, which means that for us to produce outside of the PPC, it means there has to be an increase in the resources. We have to get more land, we have to get more people, we have to get more capital, we have to get more entrepreneurial skills. Right, so that is the production possibility frontier. So those are the typical exam questions that you will see with regards to the production possibility frontier. Right, so I think we've talked about it. We've talked about the unattainable. We've talked about the efficiency. We've talked about the inefficiency, right? So it's just my notes. It's just that I went ahead of my notes. So we talked about the what? The inefficient point. right? We talked about the unattainable, the one that is outside of the PPC. We talked about the efficient, point C, inside of the PPC. Then we talked about inefficient, point E there, inside of the PPC. So point A, point C, point D, point B, they are all efficient, right? And then point E, that is inefficient because it is what? It is inside of the what? Inside of the PPC, right? So now, let's talk about opportunity cost and the shape of the production possibility frontier. All right, let's go back a little bit. I just want to see how we can explain it. Okay, let's use this one. All right, so what normally happens in an economy, right, is that you choose where you want to produce as an economy, right? You don't say we only want to produce computers 1,000, or we only want to produce wheat 20 million. You don't say that. You have to make a choice. But let's assume that you start at point A here. At point A, if you see here on my graph, this is point A. This is 1,000 computers. But at the bottom there, do you see? It's 0 tons of wheat. So the company or the country is producing 1,000 computers, but zero wheat. And then let's say the president of the economy decides, we can't do this. We also want food. We also want wheat. And they decide to go to point D over here. That's a decision that they've made to go to point D over here. At point D, how many computers is the country now producing? At point D, we can see they now have 600 computers. Right. So what does that tell you? It tells you they lost 400 computers. They lost 400 computers because they were producing 1,000 before. Now they're producing 600. So they lost 1,000 computers. But in losing 1,000 computers, what did they gain? At point D, do you see? Now they have got 12.5 million tons of wheat. So they gained 12, what? 5 million tons of wheat. So in terms of economics, we therefore say the opportunity cost of this economy producing 12.5 tons of wheat is 400 computers that were lost. Because if they decide not to produce the wheat, they can have their 400 computers. But if they want to produce the wheat, they have to sacrifice those 400 computers. So the 400 computers is the sacrifice for us to be able to produce the what? The 12.5 tons of wheat. So that is opportunity cost. Now, opportunity cost on this graph changes. It is not constant. It constantly changes, right? So we therefore then have what we call increasing opportunity cost. We also have decreasing opportunity cost, and we also have got constant opportunity cost. I'm not going to go deep into the calculations, right? It's not necessary for your exam. I've not seen an exam question that goes too deep into these calculations, right? But we've got increasing, decreasing, and constant opportunity cost. The normal type of opportunity cost is increasing opportunity cost. I'll explain it in a few minutes, right? That's the normal type of opportunity cost. This is the graph. Do you see that it is bell-shaped? It is shaped outside, right? That is increasing opportunity cost. The next type of opportunity cost is decreasing. You can see the shape is inside. You see? Increasing opportunity cost, the shape is outside, and then decreasing opportunity cost, the shape is inside. It's shaped inside, right? So that is not normal, right? But that's the shape. In case it comes in the exam and the lecturer says, what type of opportunity cost is this one? You can say it is decreasing opportunity cost. It's shaped inward like that, right? It's bold inside, right? And then we also have got constant. If it's a straight line like this, it's called constant opportunity cost. So if you see it in an exam and it's a straight line, your answer is constant opportunity cost. So now let's explain the one that is popular, increasing opportunity cost. Why do we have increasing opportunity cost? I will explain. Increasing opportunity cost is because of the fact that resources are not equally usable for everything. Think about it this way. right? You want to produce computers. What do you need to produce computers, right? You need gold, you need copper, all of those sort of things. Those are things that you find in the physical land in South Africa, right? But if you want to produce wheat, what do you need? You need like soil, fertile soil. You need water, right? So the things that you need for wheat and the things that you need for computer, they are not equal. So when you try to produce more and more and more wheat, it means that some of the resources that you were producing or using to produce computers will not be usable. You don't need gold for you to produce wheat. So it means that you need the land, yes. You need maybe the iron, right? Yes. But you don't need the gold. So as you produce more and more wheat, it becomes more and more expensive because some of the items you end up using to produce the wheat will not really be useful for the wheat production. Right. So that is where we have increasing opportunity cost because resources are not the same, because resources are not equally usable. They cannot be equally transformed when you are producing something. Right. So that is the reason why we have got the concave shape for opportunity cost, which is increasing opportunity cost. All right, let's go to the next part, right? So the next part now is, remember I said that we have unattainable. Right? The reason why we have unattainable, I said, is because we have limited resources. We've used up all of our land. We've used up all of our entrepreneurial skills. We've used up all of our labor. But if peradventure there is an increase, right? If peradventure there is an increase in a resource, it means that our our production possibility frontier will also increase, right? For example, if South Africa discovers, right, oil in the sea, we can produce more, right? We can produce more products because we now have more oil, right? If we go to war right now with Botswana over whatever argument, and Botswana surrenders and they give us their land, we can now produce more because we now have the land that once belonged to Botswana. So the production possibility or the PPC of a country can increase if the resources of the country increases. So remember, we have got how many resources? 4 resources. So this does not only apply to land, it also applies to labor, it also applies to capital, it also applies to entrepreneurial skills. So if we have more people immigrating into South Africa, right? If we've got foreigners that are coming and immigrating into South Africa for the purposes of production, it means we will produce more because we have got more labor that is coming into the country. If we have got more South Africans emigrating out of South Africa into the United States or the UK and whatever, right? It also means we have got less production because we have got people that are leaving the country. So that is labor. What about entrepreneurial skills? If we have got more universities training our students to become entrepreneurs, we have got more production because the entrepreneurial skills within the country, they are increasing. Right? So any increase in the resources of the nation will lead to an increase in the PPC of the particular nation that you are talking about. So we call that a rightward shift in the PPC. It's mainly because of an increase or a growth in the resources of that particular nation. Now, it can also happen in an economy that we can have improvement in technology that can also change our production levels. Now, when there is an improvement in technology within an economy, it does not change both sides of the graph, but it only changes one side of the graph, right? So in my example over there, let's say that there is an improvement in the agriculture technology that is being used in wheat production. That improvement in the agriculture technology will only result in the side of wheat increasing, but the side of computers remains the same. We call that in economics a swivel, right? Swivel, right? Of the production possibility curve. It means that the production possibility curve has only shifted on only one side only. It has not shifted on both sides, but it has shifted on one side only. So that is called a swivel in economics. And usually it's because of an improvement in the production technique or technology of only one of the factors of the products that you are dealing with, right? It can also happen on the computer side. It can also happen on the wheat side. It doesn't matter which side it has happened, but it can shift either one of the either one of the sides. So that is the production possibility frontier or the production possibility curve. You understand it better when we start doing our questions together. Right. But before we start doing, because I wanted us to also do questions, I've got some questions that I've listed there. But before we do the questions, I also want us to look at the circular flow of income. Right. I want us to look at the circular flow of income. I want us to look at it today. We could have looked at it next week, but I want next week for us to focus on revision. We want to do some past exam questions together more than we want to do theory, because we've done theory. I want to see if you guys are catching what we're talking about. Because remember, like I said, my emphasis is the exam. I want you guys to get distinctions in the exam. So for us to do that, we have to do a lot of questions together to see if we are working on the same line. All right, so circular flow of income. So ADBM, this is your unit number 2. First year students, this is your unit number 3. Right, circular flow of income. It's going to take us maybe 20 minutes. Right, it's not a long topic. Right. So what is the circular flow of income? So when an economy is operating, right, there are what we call the major players of an economy, right? Major players of economy, we have got households. When I say households, I am talking about either one person, like James, right? Or I'm talking about a family, James and the wife and the child. That's a household. We call them households because we say that they make singular decisions. If I stay alone, I make the decision to buy bread. If I stay with my family, I still make the same decision to buy bread. It's a singular decision. So we call them households, regardless of whether it's one person or it's a family unit. So that's a major role player within an economy. The reason why households are important in an economy is households, they are the ones that own. When we say own, we say it is theirs, right? They're the ones that own the labor in an economy. They're also the ones that own the land in an economy. I know that question, it has got a lot of connotations with it, but land is not owned by the government, right? Under normal circumstances. Yes, there is some land that is owned by the government, but under normal circumstances, land is owned by the households of an economy. So they own land, they own labor. They are the ones with the entrepreneurial skills. They are the ones that are able to start the businesses, right? They also own the capital. So what have we learned there? We are saying that the factors of production needed to produce the different goods and services in an economy, they are all found in households. And that is the reason why households are important in an economy. Right? The second major role player is the business or the company or the firm. Now, the business, the reason why the business is important is because the business is the one that does the production. If you want clothes, you go to a business that produces clothes. If you want food, you go to a business that produces food. If you want a car, you go to a business that produces car. Right. So businesses are the ones that do the production. Right. So when businesses produce, what do? They sell their products, right? To what? to the households. They sell their products to the households. But for a business to produce, for example, food, right? What do they need? They need factors of production. They need land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. And where do they get that? They get that from the households. So businesses produce goods and services through the consumption of factors of production and sell those goods and services for profit to the households. Households, they go and consume the goods and services. How do they do that? Through using their salaries, their wages, through using their profits, through using the rental income that they got, through using the interest that they got when they sold the factors of production. So those are the households. Then another key important person is the government. Now, the government sets up the system in which we operate, and then we've got the foreign sector, which represents the other countries that exist outside of South Africa. Now, within an economy, there are three major flows of an economy. There is the production flow, the spending flow, and the income flow of an economy. Right? The production flow of an economy. This is where the business takes the factors of production, joins them together, and produces goods and services. That is the production flow of an economy. Right. Then, when the production flow of an economy happens, it creates income. How does it create income? Businesses pay rentals to the people that have the land. Businesses pay profit to the entrepreneurs. Businesses pay salaries to the people that are working in labor. So it creates income. So the income flow is when the households within an economy give their factors of production to the businesses and receive money from them in the form of income, in the form of wages, in the form of profit, in the form of interest, in the form of rentals. That is the income flow. And when they receive this income, what do? They go back to the businesses and buy the goods and services by spending the income, which is the spending flow. Right. So you will notice that the spending and the income are financial because it's money. So we call them the financial flows. The financial flows is the income portion and the spending portion. But if you look at production, it is not money, it is physical. We call it the productive flow of an economy, right? So the production flow of an economy is opposite the financial flows. It is opposite the income and the spending within it. That's a typical exam question. Production is opposite financial, and financial includes the income, includes the spending. Right. Now, within an economy, we have got two markets. Mainly, we're going to talk about another market later on. We've got the resource market and we have got the goods and services market. The resource market is the market where if someone has land, they go to the resource market and they sell their land and get rentals. If someone has labor, they go to the resource market and they sell their labor and they get a salary. If someone is capital, they go to the resource market and they sell their capital and they get an interest. If someone has got entrepreneurial skills, they go to the resource market, they sell their entrepreneurial skills and they get a profit. That is the resource market. In the resource market, it is the households that are the suppliers, it is the companies that are the consumers, right? Then the goods and services market, which is our second market. This is the market where we buy our computers, where we buy our phones, where we buy our laptops, where we buy our cars, where we buy our food. This is where we get the goods and services. And in the goods and services market, it is the companies that are the suppliers and their households that are the consumers. So it's like the opposite of the resource market. Now, let's get into the graphs. Your lecturer in the exam, he will give you a graph like these ones and he will ask you to complete it. So there may be something that will be blank on the graph, right? That will not be completed that you are supposed to complete on the graph that will send you in the exam. So what are these graphs talking about? So this graph is showing you the relationship between the company and the household. Firm means company, the company and the household. So it's showing you that the household is the one that goes to the factor market and supplies factors of production. And in exchange, it gets money. Remember, we said this is what? This is wages, rentals, interest, and profit, right? And they get money for supplying factors of production. It shows you that companies want the factors of production and are willing to pay money for it. It shows you that households go with their money to the goods and services market so that they get goods and services. And companies go with their production to the goods and services market so that they get revenue. Companies get revenue from the goods and services market. Just take note of that word, revenue. Companies get revenue from the goods and services. They don't get profit, they get revenue. The one who gets profit is the household. That's the one that gets profit, right? So this is an example of a very simple diagram. Let's make this diagram a little bit more complicated. Let's introduce the government, right? So this is the government over here, right, that we've introduced. What does the government do? The government within the secular flow of income. Now, there's something that I did not say, but that is very, very important. Maybe let's go back a little bit, right? So within the secular flow of income, everything that has been produced, all the incomes that have been received, and all the spending that is going to happen, they should be equal. The production flow is equal to the income flow, is equal to the spending flow, is equal to the production flow. There should be no injections or leakages in a normal secular flow of income. But we're going to talk about injections and leakages in a moment. So everything should be equal. Because everything should be equal, furthermore, when you do macroeconomics, the measurement of GDP, you actually measure GDP using production, or you can measure GDP using income, or you can measure GDP using spending. You should arrive at the same answer because they should be the same. All right. So let's continue where we were. Right. So I was saying now we are introducing the government. What is the impact of introducing the government in economics? The first impact is that we are going to have leakages out of the secular flow of income. What are leakages? Leakages is money that is going out of the secular flow of income. So money goes out of the secular flow of income to the government through taxes, through income taxes. So there is money that we are going to lose from our secular flow of income, and we call that leakages through taxes. But also there is money that we are going to gain into our secular flow of income through grants, social transfers to the households, or through purchases done by the government of the different products that companies are selling. So that is how a government can affect the secular flow of income. Furthermore, government also needs labor, right? It needs workers. So government will also affect the product market. It does not only affect the goods and services market, but it also affects the resource market because it needs labor, it needs employees. So it's going to go into the labor market and it's going to introduce more money to pay for the labor that it requires from that particular from that particular market. Right? It even becomes more complicated when you introduce things like land and all of those sort of things. Right? Let's make the diagram even more complicated. Right. So we've got our households, remember? We've got our companies, right? We've got the government. Now we also have got the foreign sector, the rest of the world, right? What is the impact of all of these things? So again, we still have got our two markets, the market for goods and services. We also have got the factor market. Right? So each and every one of these things, government, household, firms, rest of the world, they interact with these two markets. How so? Remember, we in South Africa, there is certain things that we buy that is not from South Africa, right? We use Shein, we use Alibaba and etc. to buy things from China. We have got pharmaceuticals that we buy from the USA. So there are products, goods, and services that we import from outside the country. When we import something from outside of the country, it's called a leakage. Why is it called a leakage? Because we are taking money from the circular flow of income and paying the foreign country for those products. So imports with the rest of the world create leakages. But also as South Africa, we export, for example, vehicles, right? We manufacture vehicles in South Africa and we export it across Africa. So when we export our products across Africa, that is a injection. Why are we saying it's an injection? Because it's money that we are going to receive as these foreign countries pay for the vehicles. So a leakage is money going out of the economy, and an injection is money coming into the economy. Imports are leakages, exports are injections into the economy. Taxes are leakages, government grants, subsidies, and transfers are injections into the economy. We can even also introduce a third market, which is the financial market, which are the banks, right? So the financial market, if someone saves money instead of spending the money, it becomes a leakage. So savings, when you take money, put it in a bank and don't use it, it becomes a leakage out of the economy because it was supposed to be spent on products, right? Then if you go and borrow money from the bank, you are putting money back into the system. So that becomes an injection. So investments and etc. become an injection from the circular flow of income. So that is an example of the circular flow of income and its impact on the economy. So we've talked about injections and etc. Yeah. So we are done with our first units. So for the rest of this class, for the next remaining 20 minutes, we want to do a couple of questions. And then next week when we meet again, we want to continue with those particular questions because I believe in doing a lot of questions if you want to pass. Because questions help you to see if you actually grasped what we are talking about or you are not even understanding what we are talking about, right? So I'm going to just pick a couple of questions and then we can do them together, right? So let's look at this question as an example, right? So the lecturer, these questions are from your exams, guys. These are not questions that I created. These are directly from your exams. That's why I like to use them so that you understand what we are doing, right? So the first question there says, use the below diagram to answer the question that follows. And then we are given a diagram of the production possibility frontier. That's the diagram that we're given there. And then the question is, which point on the graph best represents inefficiency? Right. This is something that we did today. Is there anyone who wants to attempt? Anyone who's
Point B.
It's which one?
It's B.
It's
It's
B.
Point B.
B.
Yes, that's correct. B represents inefficiency. So, as we do questions, I'll re-explain for those that did not catch it the first time. So, why are we saying B represents inefficiency? Because it is inside of the production possibility frontier. So, this is what I was saying. It's a typical exam question. It's inside of the production possibility frontier. So, another question, right? Let's say the lecturer had said which one represents efficiency, right? Not inefficiency. Which one represents efficiency? What was going to be your answer? It's a question to you guys. If you had said efficiency, what was going to be your answer?
H and D.
H and
D.
H and D. Yes, that is very correct. So anything on the production possibility frontier, it represents efficiency. So that is H and D, right? And then if the lecturer had asked the question, can the economy produce at point A? What is going to be your answer? can we produce at point A? Is it possible for us to produce at point A? What is your answer?
No.
No.
Why?
No.
Why? And the
It's
reason?
Not,
It's
not
It
possible.
reached the maximum
no.
production.
yes, I like that. The lady who said we already reached the maximum production. So this line here represents the maximum production possible if we use all of our resources. So we cannot produce at point A because we have reached our maximum production possible. Then another exam question that the lecturer might ask, what situation can happen in an economy that can make it possible to produce at point A? What situation can happen in an economy that makes it possible to produce at point A? What do we need to do? It's a question.
Increase of resources.
Increase of resources. Okay, thank you. And what are these resources? What are the 4 resources that we can increase?
If we can
The
add
4
land,
factors of production.
Land. What's the other
Labor,
one?
more
Labor.
people,
More people.
capital,
Capital. That is
income.
very, very correct. So an increase in land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills will result in us being able to produce at point A. Then finally, the lecturer can ask, where is South Africa right now? Is South Africa at A, at H, at D, or at B? Where is South Africa right now?
B.
Where
B.
Why is it at B?
The
Support your answer.
the
Why is it at B?
unemployment rate is too low.
people having
That is
resources that are not
very,
equally
very
available.
correct. Unemployment rate in South Africa is 35%. So it means that there is labor that is not being used by the economy. So this is a typical exam question. Every example that I gave you, all of those are typical exam questions. So good. I see that you guys are capturing this. I'm happy. All right. So let's look at question number 2. Again, this is an exam question. You can see the 4 marks. It's an exam question. The exam was out of 100, right? It says here, you enter our competition and you could win 500 million online voucher for yourself and 10,000 voucher to women's empowerment of your choice. Mrs. Jacobs enters the competition above at Mr. Price and wins the 500 voucher. With 500 rand, she can either, number 1, buy a handbag, number 2, a pair of shoes, number 3, a jean, number 4, a jacket. Now, she already has a jacket and she does not want shoes. She would like a pair of jeans but decides to buy a handbag. What is the opportunity cost? The question, what is the opportunity cost? Remember, the opportunity cost is the next best alternative for both.
It's the pair of jeans.
Is the pair of jeans. Yes, that is very, very correct. It is the pair of jeans because we are told she likes the pair of jeans, but she decides on the handbag. She doesn't want the jacket. She does not want the new shoes. So our opportunity cost is the pair of jeans. Right. Let's look at another question here. Right. So this one says here again.
Sorry, James. Sorry,
Yes,
James. I've got
go
a
ahead.
question. With the previous question, so for the 4 marks, just saying the pair of jeans, was that worth 4 marks? Is
Yes.
that it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so nothing else is needed
Nothing
for
else,
that.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So next question here. Some of the questions will be easy. It will be bonus marks, but some of them will be a little bit more difficult. Right. So this question here says, use the diagram below, which indicates the maximum combination of good X and good Y that can be produced with available resources to answer the questions. Now, I want to highlight something. The reason why I like doing questions. Let me give you it as an example. Last year, the students that I took in January last year, right? I think by the end of the semester, we had done 6 full question papers. Each question paper has got 25 questions. So we had done almost like 150 questions together. They told me that the exam that they did, 13 of the questions that we had already done in the past exams were there. So essentially, they were guaranteed before they even thought that they had 13 out of 25. They only had to fight for the remaining 12 questions that they had to use their own study. But we do it. So the reason why I do these questions with you guys is because I know that some questions from what you have learned, you might not be able to do them yourself. But if we do as many as possible, if this comes in the exam, you already know what the solution is. All right, so let's do. Use the diagram below. We've got the diagram. And then the question is, on the production possibility curve AC. So it's telling us AC. That's the production possibility curve. AC is this one. AC. So it's this one. That's the one that is referring to AC. Right. And then we're given choices here. Right. So you go through the choices on your side, and then we see which one should be the correct one. Okay, let's see. You guys can tell me what you think, and we can see. All right, so A says output combinations D and E represent full and efficient use of resources, D and E, okay? But A, C, and F represent inefficient, A, C, and F,
No.
okay? We're agreeing that this is wrong, ne? Right,
Yes.
because A is efficient because it's on the BBC, right? So it's wrong, right? So let's go to B. Output combination D represents the most efficient use of resources, D. Who said that?
No.
We
No.
don't
No.
because
No.
E is also efficient, so this is wrong, right? C, output combinations A, D, E, and C all represent full and efficient use of resources. A, right?
Yes.
D,
Yes.
That's correct.
E,
Yes.
right? C, right? So this is correct
Mm.
because they are all on the production
Yes.
possibility frontier. Right? Simple and straightforward. So you guys are learning. Right? Let's go to the next question. Right. So if you this one was unit number 1 last week. We did this one last week, right? The demands for oil are high, and currently standing South Africa does not produce enough vegetable oil, right, to be able to meet local demand. As a result, it has pushed the industry to source oils from Europe, having domestic prices. Which of the following conditions must be met for consumer demand for a good to be what to be considered? If you remember last week, I explained to you guys the difference between want, need, and demand. This is what you are supposed to apply there. And I told you that this is a typical exam question. This is the type of question that you get. So the lecturer is asking which of these represents demand. That's essentially what he's asking. Which of these represents consumers' demand? So remember what we said. We said demand is two things. Does anyone still remember what are the two things that are in demand? Does anyone still
The
remember?
need.
The what?
Want and need.
The need.
Affordability.
The
Want
need
and
and
Affordability.
ability.
And
It's the
ability.
type of a car maybe that you want, you have to demand. Something like
Need and ability.
Okay. So it's not actually the word need, because if you say need, it has got certain connotation. Usually we use the word want. Does the person want the product? That's the usual word that we use. Does the person want the product? And then the ability. So those are the two things. So you have to want the product. You also have to have the ability to buy the product. So if those two things are there, right, then it's considered demand. If those two things are there, then
Okay.
it's considered demand, right? So let's look at it. So the consumer intends to buy the product. I've got question marks on the words that I used there. Right, let's look at the other one. The consumer is saving to buy the product. This one is out. Why am I saying it's out? Because if you are saving, it means that you don't have the money yet. It's not yet enough.
Yes.
So you don't have the ability. So that one is completely out. Next one, the consumer is able to buy the product. So ability is there.
yes.
The ability is there on this one. The consumer already bought the product. This one is not demand because the consumer has already bought the product. So the consumer intends to buy the product. This becomes our want, right? Because
Yes.
intends means that the consumer is planning to, right, to buy the product. So we have
Yes.
our want. He is interested in buying the product. But we've also been told that the consumer is able to buy the product.
Able
So
to
our
buy the
answer
product.
is going to be C. The
C.
consumer intends to buy the good, and the consumer is able to buy the what? The good. So those two represent demand for us in this particular what?
Right.
This particular question. Right. Let's look at another one. In South Africa's economy, the problem of what to produce. Now, remember the three economic questions. We said it's what to produce, and we said it's how to produce,
How
right? And
and whom?
for whom,
To
right? For
whom?
whom to
Whom?
distribute, right? So those are
To
the three
to
economic
distribute, yeah.
questions, right? So in South Africa, the problem of what to produce, how is it solved? Now, remember, we said that there are three economies: command, mixed, and what? And market. So which of these represents South Africa? How do we solve what to produce? Do we have a central planning committee in South Africa which says this year we have got to produce 88 oranges or something like that? We don't, right?
No.
So National Planning Commission is out. Does the South Africa Reserve Bank make choices for us in terms of how many things that we produce in South Africa? No, it does not.
No.
So
No.
it's
No.
out. Right. So we have got these two answers left. Right. People advertising their wants and the patterns of consumer spending. So remember the question of what to produce within a mixed economy and within a market economy is solved by two things. It is solved by self-interest and the market forces. When we say self-interest and the market forces, we are saying that people who want something will buy it, and people who do not want something will not buy it. The producer has to look to see what are people buying and what are people not buying. And what is that? That's the pattern of consumer spending.
Mm.
If you buy more
Spending.
oranges, the companies that do oranges will produce more oranges. If you buy less grapefruit, the companies
Yeah.
that do grapefruit will produce less grapefruit. You don't have to have an advert in the paper saying, guys, I want oranges. No one does that. You just go to the shop and choose by your spending what should be produced next year. I hope that's clear. All right. Then let's go to the next question. So this question number 9, right? What is the opportunity cost of producing or as consumer? What time is it? Okay. What is the opportunity cost of producing or as consumer goods in terms of capital goods in the figure below? So we've got a diagram. We can produce either capital goods or consumer goods, right? So if we use all of our resources towards capital goods, we produce, I'm just trying to help you. If we use all of our resources for capital goods, we produce here, right? So that is OP. If we use all of the resources for capital goods, right? Right. If we use
I'm
all of our
sorry,
resources,
Mr. James, but that's too small. I'm so sorry to disturb you, but that's too small. Like I can't follow.
yeah,
Your picture there
unfortunately,
is too small.
yeah, I know. Unfortunately, it's all right. Maybe let me try to draw it myself. It's just that I
You
copied
can
it
zoom it.
exactly. Can I do that? Is that possible?
I zoomed it from my own screen.
Yeah, you have to zoom it
Better.
from your own screen.
Yeah.
Has it zoomed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's fine.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I was saying that if we use all of our resources to produce only capital goods, it means we are producing this amount of capital goods, which is OP, right? If we use all of our resources to produce consumer goods, it means we are producing this amount of consumer goods, which is OQ. I'm just trying to give you clues so that you know how to read this. So then the lecturer is asking us, so now let's go back to the question. The lecturer is asking us, what is the opportunity cost of producing OS consumer goods in terms of capital goods? So what the lecturer is saying is, if we start from the point OP, where we are producing only capital goods, if we start here at the point OP and we decide to go to T here, where we are producing OS consumer goods, what did we sacrifice? In order for us to gain OS, what did we sacrifice? We sacrificed this amount.
PR and SQ.
TR.
Yes, so we sacrificed
PR.
PR. That's what we sacrifice. So that becomes your answer for a diagram on opportunity cost. It becomes PRC. The sacrificed capital good is PR, because it means we can no longer produce this amount of capital goods because we have decided to produce some of the consumer goods within our economy. Okay. Another question. An economist, so just allow us maybe, let's just say 10 more minutes so that we just finish these little questions. Right. An economist studying the impact of rising global prices on South Africa's households states the average South African household's disposable income will decrease by 5% for every 10% increase in petrol prices, ceteris paribus. Do you feel the weight of this statement? Huh? And then another economist argues the government should implement a fuel subsidies program to alleviate the burden on low-income households. Now, remember, positive economics, normative economics from our first class, right? So the first economist, the one who said the average household disposable income will decrease by 5% for every 10% increase in the petrol price, ceteris paribus. Is it positive or is it normative? The first economist.
It's normative.
Why?
Positive.
It's normative.
Positive.
It's positive.
For
Right.
the facts.
It's positive. Right. Let's explain what a positive statement is for the person who said normative. So a positive statement is a factual statement. It is a statement rooted in theory. So this economist has studied, right? He has done research, and he is telling you that every single time, right, that petrol prices increase by 10%, we see that the income, there is a decrease of 5% in South Africa. So that is something that is factual. It is rooted in research. It is theoretical in nature. It can be proved, right? Whereas the
It's
second
positive.
I say it's positive, yes. Then the
Yes, because it's
second,
rooted in facts.
yes, that's correct. It's positive, right? Then the second economist, is it positive or normative?
Normative.
Normative. Why is it normative?
Because
Because
he's giving his opinion.
yes, that is very correct. So the first economist is positive and the second economist is normative. Whenever it is an opinion which has no facts within it, it becomes a normative statement or a value judgment type of a what? Type of a question, right? And then, do we want to do this one? What is it about? Let's see. All right. A developing country, India, possesses abundant fertile land, but lacks advanced farming technology and sufficient skilled labor to cultivate all its land efficiently. The government is debating whether to invest in its limited budget in acquiring new agricultural machinery or in training its workforce in modern farming techniques. Right? In the context of India's decision making, which of the following economic concepts are most directly illustrated in this dilemma? And what is the dilemma? We're saying that the government possesses abundant, it has got a lot of land, but it is lacking in technology, right? It is lacking in capital, right? It is also lacking in skilled labor. It does not have proper labor for the what? for use in its production. So it has to decide what should we do, right, given what we have. Right? So which of these statements are below is the correct one that we, yes, select the correct answer. So which of these statements below is correct, reflecting the statement above? Statement number 1 says, the challenge of full employment indicating an inefficient use of labor resources. That doesn't feel correct, right? We'll come back to it, but that doesn't feel correct. The reason why it doesn't feel correct, because we are not saying that the economy is misusing the labor. We are being told that they don't have enough skilled labor. So they are not being inefficient in using their labor. They just don't have the skilled labor. So I don't think 1 is correct. Let's look at 2. The fundamental problem of scarcity is resources, budget, technology, and skilled labor are limited relative to unlimited want, full cultivation, and development. This one makes more sense, right? Because we have scarcity, we have limitation in terms of our resources, we have limitation in terms of our budget, we have limitation in terms of our technology, we have limitation in terms of our labor. But we want everything. We want full cultivation, we want development, we want unlimited things. So this one sounds much more correct. Let's look at the other one. The concept of opportunity cost is choosing one investment, machinery, means foregoing the benefits of alternative skilled labor. This one also sounds a little bit correct because there is opportunity cost. When you choose one specific thing, you have to forego the benefits of the alternative. Then the last one, the principle of diminishing marginal returns in agriculture, assuming that the current technology cannot fully utilize additional labor. This one also is wrong. There's nothing that is talking about. So this question, the reason why I actually brought this question is I wanted to bring you to something, right? Sometimes you never get 100% in economics, and this is the reason. There is what we call in economics the answer that is more correct than the other one. When we say that, we are trying to tell you that sometimes you can see certain questions and certain answers where you see that the answer A and answer B both sound there like they are correct. You're not wrong in thinking that, because economics is a social science. Right. When we say something is a social science, we're saying that some of the correctness is relative. It can be correct to a certain extent, then there could be a better answer that is more correct than that one. So this is the question, this question. So both 3 and 2 are correct. Don't get me wrong. Both 3 and 2 are correct because the question does represent the issue of scarcity. Because we have limited skilled labor, we have a limited budget, we have a limited technology. And yes, the question does represent the concept of opportunity cost. Because if we invest in machinery, we have to forego the benefits of investing in skilled labor. The answer here that is more correct than the other one is actually 3. Right. Unfortunately, I won't be able to explain it until you are satisfied why it is. But those are some of the things that you also have to experience in the exams, and you end up with a mark that is not 100%, 99, or whatever, because of questions like this. The reason why I believe 3 is more correct than 2 is because 3 is a perfect answer. There is nothing that you can say is wrong about 3. Because 3 is representing opportunity cost. The government is trying to make a decision. That's the context. In the context of decision-making process, that's the context. You are trying to make a decision. Whenever you make a decision, you're making a choice. Whenever you make a choice, there is opportunity cost. So in the context of decision-making, the question is talking about opportunity cost. However, outside of the context of decision making, it still also talks about scarcity, right? It still talks about scarcity. It still talks about the budget. It still talks about trying to match unlimited wants with limited resources. So the best correct answer would be 3. But even if you choose 2, I would not say you are wrong. Although the lecturer will mark you wrong, but I would not say you are wrong. You have not misunderstood economics. You have understood it perfectly. It's just that there are questions like this in economics where it can become very, very vexing. So our last question for the day. is this one. Now, this one is a very interesting question, right? Because this is calculating, all right, it's a different type of calculating opportunity cost, but it's something that you need to master in your head because it becomes very, very confusing. Right, so I'm going to teach you this one. I'm not going to ask you to answer it. Daniel Matthews is a footballer who is based in Sweden, right? So he receives a fine for 2,500 and a 2-match suspension for the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Right? So he used some drugs, he got a suspension plus a fine. Daniel receives a match fee of 5,000 per match when from Sweden footballers, right? Plus an additional appearance fee of 10,000 a match. He also pays per match comprehensive insurance against injury, 500 rand per match. In opportunity cost terms, the opportunity cost of this incident for Daniel Matthews is what? And the answers are numbers. So that's another typical opportunity cost question that you can get in the exam where you're asked to literally calculate the opportunity cost in terms of rands. So how do you solve a question like this? Right. So the opportunity cost. So when Daniel, all right, I know he did not make the decision to use. He made the decision anyway. Let's not give him a pat on the back. When Daniel makes the decision to use performance enhancing drugs, it leads to a certain thing that happens. Right. The certain thing that happens is there is a match suspension, which means that if Daniel did not make the decision, he would have played the matches, right? But Daniel made the decision, therefore, he is not going to play the matches, right? So if Daniel had made the decision, he would have played the what? The matches. And if he had played the matches, what would have happened to Daniel, right? So if Daniel had played the matches, which means if he had made the decision not to take the drugs, Daniel would have received 5,000 rand per match multiplied by 2 because there are 2 matches. It's a 2-match suspension. Daniel would have also received 10,000 rand per match multiplied by 2, right? Because it says there's an additional appearance fee. Daniel would have also have paid 500 rand in insurance. Paid, I put minus because it's paid, he did not receive it, he pays it, multiplied by 2. And that would have also happened with what? With Daniel, right? And then after everything is said and done, right now, if Daniel had not decided to do drugs, his bank account would have an extra 2,000 sitting there doing nothing. But because he decided to do drugs, what happened? He lost 2.5 to pay for the what? For the fine. If you put all of this money together, it becomes 31,500. So that is the opportunity cost of the decision to take performance enhancing drugs to Daniel. It is the loss of 31,500 rands in rents, in money terms. He has lost that money because of the decision, right? The alternative foregone is 31,500. If he had not taken the drugs, he would have 31,500. But because he chose to take the drugs, he lost 31,500 from the organization. The one that I know that is vexing some of you is this 2.5, why I have included it. The reason why we included it is because if he had not taken the drugs, he would not have paid this. It would be in his account. But because he chose to take the drugs, it's now minus on his account. So it's money that is going to lose, plus all of the other money that we talked about. So, sorry. My apologies, I've written it. It's plus here, not minus. Sorry for that. It's plus, not minus here, on the 2.5. Because we are saying that if he had not done the drugs, this money would still be in his account. If he had not done the drugs, he would have this 5,000 by 2, he would have this 10,000 by 2, he would have this 2.5, but he would have paid the insurance. Right? So that is a question of calculating opportunity costs. So this is not the last question paper that we are doing. Remember, I said next week we'll meet again on Sunday. We want to do more questions so that when we go to the next topic, which is demand and supply, we know that this topic about decisions and all of those sort of things, we have adequately covered them. So you see, we did not do any questions about circular flow of income. We're gonna do them next week. So next week, our next class next week, the whole lesson we will be just revising, looking at the questions. If you guys have got anything that you saw out there that you don't understand, feel free to ask me. So last thing, this coming week up until Sunday will be the last free lessons that I'll be offering, which means from Monday next week, Monday, I believe it will be what? The 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Is it the 15th? What is it? From Monday next week, Monday the 16th next week, the lessons that I'll be offering will no longer be free. So if you want to be part of those classes, please make sure that you text me so that we can talk. I can add you to the group. We can agree on the installments that you need to pay. The fee, remember, it's 800 Rand per module for the entire semester. You can do it in installments like 200 Rand a month or something like that. That's fine with me. So if you're interested in joining these classes, send me a WhatsApp message on my number, and then we can talk. Remember, we also do the assignments in class, just like we were doing. I'll bring the question paper for the assignment and we'll go through it together so that by the time we finish that class, you just go and sit down and write and submit, because you already know what the answer is, what are the workings, what are the calculations, what are the graphs, and etc. Right? We do everything together in class. The only thing that we cannot do in class together is the exam. But what we do is we do preparation classes like what we're doing, where we go through past exam papers together. And then we have got classes for business finance, classes for marketing, classes, first year students, management, analytical techniques, and etc. You just send me a message, highlight me the classes that you want, and I'll highlight to you when those classes are. For the first year students, remember, like I promised last week, we are starting this week. So all of the classes for the first year students, we are starting from tomorrow going forward, right? So just hit me up and I'll let you how we're going to be going about it, right? So thank you guys for coming through. I hope you enjoyed the class. We shall see each other for business finance tomorrow. For the rest of you guys, maybe on Sunday next week, but during the week, I'll be posting in the groups the different classes and etc. I hope all of you have my number. Just make sure you save it. In case you see, James, I was expecting a class, but I did not see it, send me a message and then I'll update you. I hope all of you have my number. Good night.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
James, I just want to ask.
Bye.
Thank you,
sorry.
James.
Hello?
Thanks, James.
Someone
James, are you still
James.
there?
Okay, thank you.
James?
James.
Yes?
Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay, I just want to find out, when are you sending the recordings? Because I've been attending your classes from last week and I haven't seen the recordings.
Which degree are you doing?
It's a project management first year.
First, for first year students, remember we only did economics last week, I think in management. So I haven't really been sending the recordings, but I'm gonna create the groups if I have not yet created them and start sending the recordings this week. For first years, I know I haven't really been sending the recordings
You
because
haven't, okay.
we had not really officially started. But if you don't see the recordings by tomorrow, text me. If you don't see the recordings by tomorrow, text me, because I'll start sending the recordings for the first years. That is tomorrow in the morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Okay,
so
that's
much,
fine.
James.
Okay. James, can I ask? It's a quick one.
Yes.
Do we need to buy a financial calculator for business finance? This is one of the questions that came yesterday when we had our first webinars. So I was like, I need to ask you.
The question is, a simple scientific calculator will do. A simple calculator will do. You don't really need a financial calculator, because the things that
right.
need a financial calculator, That's the capital budgeting and investment appraisal, but we don't use financial capital calculators. We use the tables at the end of your study guide, so you don't really need it. You honestly,
Okay, James.
it will actually end up confusing you because financial calculators, you actually need to learn how to use it. Just buy a basic calculator. Just a basic Casio scientific calculator should be fine. I don't think you have any problem.
Thank you, James.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good night, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.